which I was thinking that I shall be covering. But I will try to avoid those so that I will limit the time as well. But I will be giving some important tips and how I felt when I started all this. As I can see, there are questions coming up when Elizabeth was giving up the talk. And similarly, when I was applying for it, there was lots of questions. There means, although GMC and Royal Colleges have quite a lot of information, but then getting those information and putting them into practice is a big thing. And it is not easy. And the important thing which I felt, although we can get the information from there, but the people who have done it, if you get hold of one of them, and then if you can get the guidance from them, then probably it will be easy and it will be good for everyone. And that's the reason I thought wherever I've been helping people about it, and I thought probably I will continue helping. So basically, why we need CESR? As Elizabeth has mentioned, some of us came from mostly the international medical graduate, but I have seen few of the local graduates as well. For some reason, if they are not in the training, for whatever reasons, let's not discuss those. But mostly the international medical graduate, when we come to this country, most of the time we come with the idea that, okay, we'll take few years of experience, do some subspecialties, clear the exam and go back. And the reason which we know, for whatever reason, sometimes we need to stay back. And after that, we start experiencing that the people which we are training, or the junior trainee which are coming us, slowly, because they're in the training post, they are going up the ladder and they are getting into the consultant post, or they are getting into the specialist registration, and you're still to get stuck in the middle grade level. So this is very frustrating sometimes, honestly, and that's what sometimes most of us start thinking, okay, what is the alternative route? Unfortunately, when we work in the hospital, and it is a good thing, because we are liked by the team, we are liked by the consultant, we are liked by our nursing team, the multidisciplinary team, because they know that if there is anything, this is the person who is always there, and you can always go to them. But career-wise, there is a stagnation. And because of that stagnation, I think this thing is a very right thing, which GMC and Royal Colleges has put in, and which we need to get into, and we need to think about it. Although there are some slides which I have prepared, but probably when I'm talking about the experience, mostly it will be how I did it, how I prepare for it. That is the most important thing I will be talking about. And obviously, we'll be happy to take any questions in the end. If you can do the next slide, just for the sake of it. So basically, the plan. Unless you plan for something, it will be difficult to achieve. Now, if you get into the training, more or less, you are just having a smooth sailing. You will keep on going. You will ultimately achieve what you're looking for it. But unless you plan for it early, you won't be able to do it. Now, most of the SAS doctors, or most of my colleagues I have seen, if they know about it, then they start doing things about it. Like, say, there are lots of things, lot of evidence which you need to collect. Like, say, as a SAS doctor as well, you're getting into the teaching, you're getting into the training, you're doing audits, you're collecting data for research. And most of the time, because you are the one who are in the hospital for a longer term, you are the one who ended up doing the rota, you are doing the rota coordinator, you are helping with the induction, you are doing all these things, which most of the time you feel like, okay, why every time I'm doing it? Am I not audible?
To me, it sounds fine. There was one comment only, so I think we're all happy. The sound is fine. Yeah, just was checking in.
Okay, so planning is basically the most important thing, which I feel. Once you plan for it, because this is a long process, whether you take it or not, again, this is a long process, and you need to think about it in a way. Like, say, when people ask me how difficult was it for you, I just give a very small example. Like if you need to go from your home, if you want to go to a new place which you never have visited, what you can do, you can get into your car, you put the navigator on and drive there. There may be a little bit that you may lost the way in between, but still easily you can navigate there. But if you're not planning for it, or if you're not getting into the car, the other way is that you come out of your house, get into the bus, go to the railway station, inquire about the rail, that which rail will be going to your destination, buy the tickets, get into the rail, reach your place, then look for the place where it is you're inquiring again. Ultimately, you will reach there, but it may take some time. So that's the only difference I feel in the real life. If you want to see what is the difference between going into the training and taking this CESR route. So that's the reason I say the planning. So when we say planning, usually when GMC is looking for the evidence or Royal College is looking for the evidence, they are looking most of the evidence which you have done in last 5 years. And when you start planning for it, that means at least you will take an year collecting your evidence. So if you keep on collecting the evidence during that period as well, so it will be like retrospective and the prospective as well. So these are the two things which you need to remember. That's the reason I said that this it needs a lot of planning. And if you plan, then think once you plan, maybe I would say within the next 6 months to 1 year, you will be able to achieve it. Next slide is about the evidence. Okay, so once you applied for it, once you start thinking about it, you need to collect the evidence. Now, for evidence, what I would suggest is keep on making a diary. You can, these days, you can put electronic evidence, which is very easy. Now, evidence again, because the evidence which they want is about your patient care, about the cases you have seen on the ward, about the cases you have seen in the outpatient department, or the procedures which you have been doing, like for surgery, all the surgeries you have been doing. So these are the evidence which will be required for any CESR application. The best way, I believe, to do it, if you can register with your respective royal colleges, because once you register with the respective colleges, the things will be a bit more streamlined. There are work-based assessments which you can add, because they are the very good things which you can put it in your evidence. Then multi-source feedback, if you can do multi-source feedback for every year and you can have it for last 5 years, that will be the best thing to show. Then different logbooks, like for the procedures, you can see them on the Royal College websites for the surgeries and all, but for a specialty like PEDS, you can get it from the Royal College site, or you can try to make it yourself and make a logbook of procedures. As I said, the retrospective and prospective. So prospective, if you start thinking about it, and if you're making these logbooks, then you can easily keep on verifying them from your consultant or from your senior, from your colleagues when you're doing them. So the verifying thing is very important. And again, it will take lots of time. And as you remember, Elizabeth was saying, like if you have done it from different hospitals, like obviously you have done training or non-training posts in different hospitals. If you want a verification, you need to do verify from those hospitals, and you need to go back to them. So in case if you're doing it now and if you are planning for it, my advice would be keep on getting your things verified, keep on saving your evidence. The other thing is like the triangulation, which Elizabeth was talking about, and that is a very important thing. Wherever you are working, you need to save your rotas. You need to make sure that you're saving your rotas. You need to see that what specialty you're working during that period of time. And if you save those rota before, at least for the 5 years, you need to show that these are the rotas you have worked on. And that will be a very important thing again for evidence. Then comes the job description. So wherever you're working, if you can keep your job description with you and get it verified from your HR before you leave that place. In case of international medical graduate, if you have done the training back home, wherever you have done it, you need to make sure that you're collecting the job description, rotas from there, get it verified from the HR there or from your colleagues there. And then you need to bring them so that you can put them as evidence. So next slide, if we can show, that is basically my slide. And these are the evidence, these are the collection of evidence which I collected before I applied for it. So this was the final papers, because I think at that time we need to send all the documents in hard copies, and uploading was done by your advisors at GMC. So this was the amount of papers. There were around 1100, 1200 pages, which I have sent to GMC at that time. And imagine once you start collecting, I think there were more than 2000 pages, and then I need to shortlist what I can send as evidence to GMC. The next slide, this is what, as Elizabeth was saying, if you have evidence, might as well you need to show them. If you can show the evidence, then only obviously when the assessor is assessing your application, then only they can say, yes, these things have been done. Next slide is about some of the reasons, although Elizabeth in her talk has mentioned, but this is my experience, which I am saying, although the advisors which was appointed to you by the GMCs, they are very good. And I would say just you need to get involved with them, because most of the time the papers, that's for me as well, and for the people which I'm in helping after I got my CESR, is anonymizing your evidence, because most of the time we miss somewhere in between the letters, we do miss. And these people are very good. They will find it out, they will send it to you, although it is a lengthy process, but this is what it is. And the second is about the domain, which I will talk about in details. The curriculum vitae, Elizabeth has mentioned, and if you go to your Royal College websites as well as GMC websites, they have given a very nice structure. And what I would suggest, because most of the time some people start going to the professional to get your curriculum vitae. But believe me, as a doctor, you are the one who can do it rather than any of the professional. Maybe they can do it for the other professions, but not for the doctors. So these curriculum vitae, if you can start putting your things according to the performer, which is on the GMC website, then it is very, very relevant. And then the structure reference is the another thing. Although the evidence which you have to provide is there, but the structure references are very important. But you need to make sure, as the GMC said, that two of them at least should be in your specialties. But I would say that it should be in your specialties, in your subspecialties, and it should not be from one hospital. If you have worked in more than one hospitals, it should be from them. Apart from structure reference, the other thing which I notice is if you can have some letter of recommendations. So the letter of recommendations is like, if you have worked, although you are doing MSF, but if you have worked with some nurses, if you have worked with your colleagues, if you can ask them to write the letters, and again, that should be in the performer. If you can attach them, they will be again a very good evidence in support of your application. Next slide is about the domain which I was talking about. And again, fortunately or unfortunately, I was in the same boat. When we come from the international medical graduate, the thing is, we think when we are working as a doctor, we are working more about the patient care, about the procedures. So if you look at this, there are 11 domains in here, but the 50% is covered by patient management and procedures. Rest 50% out of it, if you look at it, this is I have taken from the Royal College sites. If you look at it, it says about leadership and team working, education and training, health promotions, research, safeguarding, quality improvement. So those are the things which you need to make sure that you have an idea that it's not only when we are collecting the evidence. The bottom line is, when we are collecting the evidence, we start thinking about patient management or the clinical bits more rather than the other things. But if you look at it, when the assessor is assessing your application, they need to look at the other things as well. So just keep on and be opportunistic. Like sometime, as I was saying earlier, as a rota coordinator, that is a big organization job which you are doing. So those things which you need to keep, like a research, if you are in the hospital, they are asking you to collect the data for the research. So those are the things which you need to keep in mind, and you need to see what evidence you can provide. So the point which I want to put forward is that you are doing so many things, but sometimes we don't realize, and sometimes we do it, maybe we are not happy doing it, but still we are asked to do it, but we don't realize that how beneficial it will be at later date. And this is again, I'm telling you from my experience. So next slide is again, the important thing which I would say about CESR is that you need to prepare. And as Benjamin Franklin said, by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. So unfortunately, make sure that you're preparing for it. You're taking all the information from whatever the sources you can take, and then start working on it. And believe me, then it will be a straightforward thing. And last slide, just want to say just a summary about it. So basically, sometime you need to take this path if you're not going into the training for whatever reasons. Let's not talk about that. It is difficult. There is no denying to it. But as you have seen from the statistics, that people are getting it, and quite a lot of people are getting it. And again, the GMC and Royal College provide a lot of information regarding this route. And you have to be patient, because this is a time-consuming and it's quite stressful procedure. Again, with experience, maybe some people may not think like that, but you have to be patient, determined, and well organized, and definitely you will succeed. I will be happy to take any questions, but I think that we will be doing in the end. Thank you.
Many thanks, Dr. Arush Qayyum, for this wonderful session. It was really helpful describing your first-hand experience, and it will definitely help us to start preparing. And as you mentioned, that we have to plan, a proper planning is required. And with all your talk today, at least we can try to create a structure and start collecting evidence. And hopefully today in all the sessions, we will be able to know from whom to seek help and in your hospital, and so that we can approach them and start showing and getting verified whatever you have done. Because as Dr. Qayyum mentioned, that we are doing everything in the hospital, and probably
don't take any thought.
Yeah. So it is important to get the evidence verified. Now we should be moving on to another aspect called, as some say, as a locally employed doctor, trust doctor. There are many of us working in the hospital, and in the same hospital, mainly for maybe for 2 or 3 years, more than that. And what is for us, and how can we go to the career progression if we are a locally employed doctor, or now it is termed as SAS doctor. So I have a wonderful speaker today giving the first hand experience. So Dr. Prakash Kalambetu, who is a locum consultant doctor at Worcester Hospital, and he is also chair of the RCPCH SAS committee. So please, may I ask Dr. Prakash to share your screen. Thank you so much. Yes, Dr. Prakash, we can see your slides.
Dr. Prakash, are you there? If you need a couple of minutes, we could perhaps take a couple of questions from the floor whilst we're getting over a slight technical hitch.
Yeah, let us know as soon as you're ready. Meanwhile, we can start the questions. So, Nadia, will you be starting the question?
Yeah, well, no, I was just going to say, just whilst we're waiting for him to come back online, I wonder if Richard Nicol was there, if you would be able to just answer, because someone was asking, Richard Nicol is one of the consultants at Northwick Park who's in the CESR committee for RCPCH and has helped quite a lot of, has looked at quite a lot of applications, but he was just explaining that there is an ASG group at each hospital if people are looking for support locally. Richard, if you were there to unmute, would you be able to?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Yes, in theory, there should be an SSG lead at each hospital. Now, that might be tricky if you're not, of course, hospital-based, but nevertheless, I'm sure they'd be approachable. I'm pretty sure the college does not have a list of all the SSG reps in the hospital, so you may have to do a bit of sort of detective work on that. I noticed in the chat someone was suggesting, would it be a good idea, to have a forum, an online forum? I'm sure there's nothing to stop you guys setting up such a forum, to exchange ideas and contacts. I think that'd be a very good idea. The team at the college are extremely helpful, very approachable. There's a small team of about 8 people involved in managing the CESR process, and they're very approachable. Please don't assume that any consultant colleague will know about this. It's a mystery to most consultants. So if you come from overseas, to use that term, don't assume that any consultant will know about the CESR process. They won't. They absolutely will not. They might try to give you advice, though, which is not, you want to get the right advice from the right person. So I think this is why I think a network would be a good idea, so that if you're based in the Midlands, you could find someone who's been through it all. Someone like Araj is excellent talk to give you guidance. I mean, this is a very high stakes process. It's very stressful, costs a lot of money. The success rate has gone up with training days like this, which is encouraging. But really, I think the success rate should, in my view, should be well into the 90%, because as Arish says, you've got to really prepare for this, and you've got to prepare for it to be successful. It's not something you think, well, I'll just sort of give it a go and hope for the best. You've absolutely got to have all your ducks in a row. Is the speaker ready yet? No. Not sure.
Okay, that's super helpful. Thank you for filling in. Yeah, go ahead.
My last point is I think there's 100 people on this meeting, and my experience of trying to give advice is that those 100 people will all have completely different needs, different backgrounds, different CVs. So it's really helpful to get sort of one-to-one advice. It's very hard to give advice that sort of one size fits all. Okay, well, I'll let you carry on. We'll probably chat a bit later. Okay. That's
super helpful. Thank you for filling in spontaneously. That's really helpful. And I think that individual attention is something that we're hoping to try and develop. Yep. So Dr. Prakash has been able to come back online now. So we'll hear about the SAS pathway and his expertise on that. I will let Ashwin introduce him, and I'm going to share the slides.
Hi. Sorry for the technical glitch. Now Prakash is back. So I will introduce Dr. Prakash in a short, that he is one of the SAS doctors in the UK, and he has been practicing here since last 22 years. He's also chair of the SAS committee in the RCPCH. He's working as a locum consultant at Worcester Hospital. Dr. Prakash, may I request you to please start the session today?
Yeah. Thank you, Ashwin. Thanks for the introduction. Oh, it's been a good talk by Elizabeth and Dr. Koyun. I'm going to talk on a different perspective. And my perspective is totally going to be what is the role of an SAS, and what do you mean by SAS? People are confused with SAS. Is it something viable or not? And what are the career prospects? So I'm going to go a little bit of tangential from the earlier 2 talks. and then I can take some questions. I think one of my colleagues is joining in for the panel discussion so that we can give you a little bit of a different perspective and career advice. Just wait for my first slide to come up.
Apologies, thought you could see the slides. So
No worries.
I'll reload them and hopefully that will work. Can you see the slides now? Can anyone see the slides?
Nadia, we can't just see the drop down.
Not yet, yeah.
Okay, just a sec.
Apologies, my internet just shut down, so I'm just coming through my mobile. Apologies for that.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can see, yeah.
Okay.
Shall we go to the next slide, Nadia? So as I said, I'm currently doing a locum pediatric consultant in Worcester, and I'm the SAS chair, been an SAS chair for about 3 years, and I'm giving up my post. I'm demitting by end of June. Can you go to the next slide, please?
Can people see my journey so far?
No, we are in the opening slide.
Just a second. So the slide's not moving?
No, I just got, you're still in the first slide. My internet has just come back, so I can try to log on.
Do you want to forward the slide to me so I can try and share it?
I can. I mean, they're moving for me. They're just not moving on the webinar. So let me.
Yep.
I can see the slides now. I can see it.
Thank you, Nadia. So I'm just telling you a journey so far. So we have been hearing about CESR and SAS career. So I'm just giving a typical story of mine, which is an SAS route. So I'm quite a senior person, graduated in about 1998, finished my postgraduate, started my post-graduation in pediatrics from one of the premier institutes in India. So did my postgraduates for about 3 years. Then as everybody came to UK to gain some additional experience in 2004. So when I came to UK at that time, it was a surplus of doctors. So we were like applying 30 people for one post. So during that time, I found my break by becoming a trust grade doctor. So that's your locally employed doctors. So did a year and a half in a non-pediatric, but it was a pediatric, allied pediatric post. Then got into training from 2007 to 9. I was in different types of training. At that time, we did not have a national recruitment. So all of them were pretty much local recruitment. And I don't know if you guys were aware of MTAS. So that was something which came up in 2008, which caused quite a bit of chaos because of the way it was done. And at that time, I managed to get into ST3 training because they thought I was too overqualified to join ST1. And that was the reason I couldn't get earlier post as well, because I was too overqualified. And after that, I decided to say that training was not my thing. One of the things was exams. And then I ended up doing a specialty doctor post. So specialty doctor post was created in 2008. So I worked for specialty doctor post for about 4 years. Then I got my first step up consultant post. And then I've been as a locum consultant for about now nearly 6 years. Just realizing it was nearly 6 years since I've been a locum consultant post. And I'll go to the next slide. So what did I do in this period? So as Dr. Karim said, is you should always be looking for opportunities and not just say, I'm going to get on. So once I joined the specialty doctor, I decided CESR was not for me. I will tell you the reasons for it. But I decided to develop my SAS career. So what I did was spoke to people, and they gave me good guidance and said, why can't I become an SAS appraiser? Because one of the things what an SAS does is you are appraised by a consultant. And as Dr. Karim said, is SAS doctors, the consultants don't know what is needed from an SAS. So spoke to an SAS tutor who guided me, and I became an SAS appraiser. As everybody is doing, is we become medical student, we teach medical students. I thought, why can't I become an examiner? So an examiner, little of a struggle to become an educational and clinical supervisor, but managed to get the training and recognition and have pediatric trainees under me. Along with it, I did my interest. So I'm interested in safeguarding and SUDIC. So I decided to attend those training as well as attending those management meetings. So that was taking my management criteria. Other interest was epilepsy. So SAS doctors always struggle to get a grid or a spin module at that time. So I managed to go on my own time, sit in some epilepsy clinics, get my experience, get myself certified, and then started doing epilepsy clinics. And once I became a consultant, was doing independent epilepsy clinics. And all of us have to do our NLS every 4 years. And I thought, why should I keep on being assessed when I can be a good teacher? And then I got recommended as an instructor, and then now I'm a course director. So I direct courses in a couple of hospitals now. When I was a medical student examiner and a supervisor, people said, why can't you be in the ARCP panels? So I got good recommendations and good support and counseling, mentoring to become a ARCP panel. So I'm regularly sitting now foundation and pediatric training things. And now I'm named doctor for safeguarding in my trust. I've been there for about a couple of years and have been heavily involved in writing quite a bit of policies. So this is a flavor of what an SAS doctor can do, and not necessarily that you have to be a consultant to get on to do these things. Can we go on to the next slide, please?
Sorry.
So what do you mean by SAS? It says a short form for specialty and associate specialist doctors. I call them silent and steady group of doctors. So these are the doctors who are a diverse group who are minimum have about 4 years of experience as doctors practicing, not just independently under supervision is what we say. So they work in different grades. So they can be either in the junior most at SHO level, or as a registrar, or as a consultant level. So they can work at all the 3 tiers, and there are different terminologies. Prior to 2008, we had associate specialist, but the terminology has changed now, and synonym to associate specialist is now called the specialist. Staff grades are no longer called, they are called specialty doctors from 2008. But other terminologies like clinical fellows, trust grade, non-trainee doctors, trust doctors all still exist, and that is what we are trying to change.
Oh, shit.
No worries.
Apologies.
No worries. As Ashwin in the introductions said, there are a lot of reasons for being a specialty doctor or going down to the specialty grade. There are a lot of things, many people take it as a career choice. And the career choice is either because of personal reasons, or it could be because of professional reasons that they did not get the specialty, or they did not get the special interest what they wanted for. And as a specialty doctor, they can pursue those interests and get better with it. The other thing is your family reasons. A lot of people have families, and that is mainly for childcare, or they don't want to commute because some deaneries are quite widespread and they get put from one corner of the county to another part of the county, and that disrupts family life. And nowadays people look for work-life balance, and one of the reasons why people get into specialty doctors is to maintain a work-life balance. And not but the least, people consider exams as a primary criteria. And we know from our statistics that being an overseas trained doctors, the pass rate is not as good as a UK trained doctor. And many people do have stumbling blocks as an exams, and they decide to become a specialty doctor or locally employed doctors to buy time for the exams. Just wait for the next slide. Yeah. A good question, Sabine. I will answer that question in the panel section. That's a very good question, which people have asked me as well. Nadia, what's the login code? I can log in now. My internet has come back.
I'll share the PowerPoint to Habab. And what do you want, Prakash?
I'm just trying to see login codes because the slides are not moving, so I'm trying to get in.
Okay. I can see them perfectly, so I don't know why, but
I can't see it. No.
I'm going to share them to Habab. Sorry to the audience if you just be patient.
No, because it's.
And I put the PowerPoint
because it's just coming on your files.
Habab, the PowerPoint's in the CESR WhatsApp group. And Prakash, did you want the joining link?
No, I think I got it now. Yeah. I'm able to log into my. I'll join in a second. Get my slides.
Nadia, you can try stop screen share, open the presentation and share again, see if that works.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm able to log in now. Because the next is, if you guys have been seeing the GMC data survey in 2019, which is released.
Recording in progress.
Just.
Yeah.
So you are good now, right? Or you want me to share it?
Can you see it? Oh. Great. Yeah, we can see it, Prakash.
We can see it now, yeah.
Yeah.
We can't hear you now, Prakash.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. You're able to hear me now?
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
SAS group was not, we didn't have a group. They were working in a silo, and since whenever NHS has been there. So it has been recognized as a group, and from 2002 onwards, there are a lot of committees formed. And the first actual survey happened in 2019, led by GMC. And this figure has recently been done. So they've done sub-analysis, sub-metric analysis. And we all presume SAS means as an overseas trained graduate who's already trained, who's coming in here. But this is an interesting cluster which took us all by surprise, but not surprised. What they said was there are three main clusters they found with your SAS survey. So if you look at the cluster one, it is mainly comprised of females who are UK trained, and they have been practicing for about 15 years, predominantly white, and they form 1/3 of the surveyed people. So we have about 1/3 of about 30% of your medical workforce is SAS doctors or locally employed doctors, but about 10% of them actually contributed to the survey. So some people consider this to be skewed, but this does give you a good idea of what SAS doctors composition is in the country. So second cluster is comprised of, again, predominantly male, but had overseas as 90%. And they were 44% less than 10 years of practice in UK. So these was your predominantly locally employed doctors. Not surprisingly, 84% were from ethnic minority, and they comprised about 50% of the surveyed group. The next cluster is your cluster 3, which is about 2/3 were male and again overseas trained, but these were the ones who had over 15 years of UK experience, and 70% were from ethnic minority, but they formed about 1/5. Of all these clusters, the cluster 1 had a very good opinion and favorable outcomes, and they were very happy in their workplace and they had good support from their department. Cluster 2 was half and half, so they were not too bad, but not too good as well. So they were sitting on the fence and they were happy with the way things are. Cluster 3 were the ones who reported that they were bullied, they were not supported, they did not want to apply for CESR, and they'd like to be as they are, but they will still continue working in UK. So just for definition, what do you mean by a specialty doctor? So a specialty doctor is any doctor who can take up this post. It is 4 years after graduation, but it should include 2 years in that specialty. This is a good step forward from locally employed doctors, because locally employed doctors, they could not get the support and could not get the guidance and all the papers to do that. And this is a nationally recognized post which has got nationally agreed terms and conditions. The only drawback with this is it's a slow progression. So from the bottom, it's got different steps. From the bottom to the top, it takes about 20 years to reach that. The first 10 years is easy. You go every year, you climb a step, but from the 11th year to the 20th year, it's every second year you progress. And that has been a stumbling block and one of the things which people are not happy about. So prior to that, there was something, prior to 2008, there was something called associate specialist, but in 2008, the government closed it. And then there was negotiations happening and there was repeated calls from everybody asking to reopen. So there was negotiations in last year, and from last April onwards, there's a new post called specialist post. So this is to promote independent practice and to give you evidence to have autonomous practice, have your own named patients, do your own surgical list and all those, and you can lead a service department or you can do service improvements. The minimum criteria for this is 12 years after graduating with at least 6 years in your specialty. The beauty of this post is the job description can be modified depending on the need and the post needed. So if somebody has got a post where you need a niche specialty and you've been in that department for 12 years, or you've been doing that for about 6 years in that department, and total of 12 years after training, the trust can create a post along talking to the Royal Colleges, and it will be a national advertised post with a proper interview. But once this is done, your specialist post is, which can be carried on to different trusts and things. The advantage of this is it recognizes you working autonomously, makes the trust to do it autonomously. But I'll come to the drawbacks of this in a little bit time. The thing which is now we want to get involved, and the reason why I come to you guys is your locally employed doctors. So locally employed doctors are the doctors who work in different posts such as clinical fellow, trust fellow, and other fellows. So these are short-term posts mainly created to cover rota gaps, or if you got a specified time, say you're coming here, people come here for a year or two to gain some specialty experience, but they won't be under any national terms and guidance. And these are the doctors who work in silo, do not get much help from that department, or when they have any problems, they do not know whom to talk to. And this is a type group of doctors whom we want to really engage. As we showed you, it's about 50% of your SAS force now is locally employed doctors. So this pathway, everybody is familiar with people who are in training, complete your foundation year training, you join into specialty training, and then you get your CCT at end of 7 or 8 years. But for an SAS doctor, the pathway is, as you can see, it is quite complicated and not straightforward. So you complete your training, your foundation year training, then either you get into getting into a specialty post, or you can get into a locally employed. So a lot of people call F3 post. So some people go in to boost their chances of successful application to a training post. So they do either 6 months to a year in the specialty interest. So VRP, so they do in pediatrics to boost up their chances. A lot of people in training decide for other reasons. What we talked before is, I don't want to get into training. Our training is not helping helping them either mentally or professionally, and they decide to go into either a specialty doctor role where they take up specialty because they develop interest and continue to be a specialty doctor, or take locally employed doctor roles for a couple of years, or say less than 5 years, before they rejoin training or decide to go into a specialty doctor role. From a specialty doctor role, you can either, a lot of people who prefer rejoining training to complete their CESR, because once you leave the process and then go back, then it becomes a CESR, CCT, CP, they do that. But now either it becomes a CESR if you have more than 5 years, but if you're been out of program for less than 5 years, you can still get a CCT for that. Or some people go on to become CESR. But people who like to be a specialty doctor, if they have been in that specialty doctor post in total in that specialty for more than 6 years, and in total of 12 years since finishing your foundation year training, you can go on to become a specialist post. And that this is a new post which, at least in pediatrics, has not had much uptake, but has got a good uptake in surgical specialties. So career pathways is, I say that is, becoming an SAS doctor is a career choice. It's not just that you didn't get into training or training did not do what you wanted to do. It is a parallel pathway to training. It is a proper career choice, and majority of them are happy being an SAS doctor. In the GMC survey, the doctors they surveyed, only about quarter of them said they're going to proceed with their CESR application. That means about 75% were happy with the way they are, and 1/3 said they were planning to rejoin training. But as I said, most of them are happy doing the job what they like. So some tips and advice is there's a lot of evidence available for SAS doctor role. So there is things available of what your rights are, what specialty doctor means, what specialist means on NHS employers, BMA, and your best information is your fellow SAS doctor. So what I would suggest is you need to talk to people and make some choices rather than just reading things. Prior to, say, the internet becoming or the social media being so popular, it was just word of mouth and just networking, and that's what has got me through. And we have to recognize, and now a lot of trust and a lot of departments are recognizing SAS as a career choice. Previously, there was not much support, but in the last 5 years, things have changed. As you can see, the number of CESR applications successful also has gone up. So people are recognizing and being supportive to say that it is a career choice. And you need to develop skills, but you need to develop skills not just only on your interest, but see what your local need is. And you have to be opportunistic and develop skill interest. And that is the way you can progress in your career. And SAS doctors, as Dr. Karim said, you need quite to put in a lot of effort. As a trainee, you think your efforts are quite a lot, but as an SAS doctor, you're looking at 3 or 4 times the effort you need to put to get recognition. But it will bear fruit at its time. You won't get it when you need it, but you will get it at the right time, and it will give you the fruits you need. And what I suggest is look at your trust, not necessarily your department, to see who your SAS team is. And that will give you a flavor of how your trust is supporting SAS doctors. Your department is based on your trust culture. And we have to be mentally prepared for a lot of setbacks. It's not a rosy path, and there will be a lot of red tapeism there, but if you are determined and you have the mental willpower, you will overcome the red tapeism. Things are changing. As I said, it's a changing landscape for SAS doctors. In the last 7-8 years, things have changed. There are a lot of support available. So what I would suggest is make the best of it. Be opportunistic, have your eyes and ears open. And as previously said, for CESR, there's a lot of GMC and college guidance. And what I would suggest is talk to somebody who has recently completed the CESR. Those names, if you talk to your department or you talk to your friends, you should be able to know who has recently been successful in CESR, because they will tell you what is needed. And for CESR, what I would suggest is, in addition to what Elizabeth said, is college does some workshops, and there is a huge success rate for people who have attended those workshops. Those workshops are a one-day workshop. And a lot of people who have recently completed CESR also attend those workshops to give a talk. And that workshop is useful for getting guidance. As again, I will not hesitate to say network, network, network. And this is one of the networking events. And unless you network, you won't get that information. Thank you.
Many thanks, Prakash, for the wonderful session. And as you said, network, network, network. And we have a very good example here. Just now I created a group, and I think more than 40 people have joined for CESR WhatsApp group. So it really helps connecting people who are in the same boat, and then we can help each other. So many thanks for your wonderful talk today. And now I think we can go forward for the question and answer session. With Dr. Prakash. It's also Jamil is joining. Prakash, would you like to introduce Jamil?
Okay. I got my colleague Jamil. He's now the co-chair. He's now going to be the coach. Hi, Jamil. So he's going to be the co-chair from July onwards. So he's taking over my mantle and going to be a co-chair of the SAS committee. And he's currently the consultant in Manchester. He's a locum consultant in Manchester. And he's done one thing which I would suggest to you guys is he's a fellow of the college. So he's been successful in getting a fellowship of the college. So that is something which opportunities are there. You don't have to be a consultant to apply for fellowship. Welcome, Jamil.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Prakash. It was a very nice presentation, and absolutely a pleasure to be part of this group, actually. Looking forward. So any questions, more than welcome.
Could I just ask if all panel members who presented could put on their cameras and maybe just do a quick introduction in case anyone's joined and missed some of the talks? Would that be okay?
Apologies for the technical issues. My internet just fell on me.
Shall I go first, just because I spoke first? So if we've had any late joiners, you may not have heard my part. But my name is Elizabeth Watkins. I'm the head of specialist applications at the GMC. So I'm responsible for the specialist and GP registers and all of the various types of applications to those registers. And I spoke in some detail, overrunning. Apologies to my fellow speakers who came after me for that. I hope I didn't eat into your time too much. But so I gave quite a lot of information around the CESR process, but really happy to take any questions about any of the various routes to the specialist and GP registers. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Arush Kayyum. I'm working as a consultant pediatrician in London. I have joined as a consultant. It's been almost 7-8 years now, and but I got my CCT by CESR route. So I think I can help you to give some answers about my experience, which was in my talk as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Richard?
Hello, my name's Richard Nicholl. I'm an NHS consultant neonatal paediatrician since about 1995, and I've been doing the CESR stuff since it started because I wanted to get on the committee to better understand the process, which I think has improved a lot, as we've heard from some of the speakers. And it's good that the success rate is improving, but I really would like it to be higher. And I think it's training days like this that are improving it. It's also great to have the GMC represented at these meetings. We've had the GMC represented at our committee meetings at the college, and it just improves the dialogue. I was amused by Arush's photograph of his 2,000-page applications. I've read lots of applicants. I've never seen one that's less than 1,000 pages. So, you know, the amount of effort that you guys have to go into for this is way beyond the run-through people who are sort of on a sausage factory. They get on at the start, come out 8 years later, hey presto, they're ready to be a consultant. Whereas you guys are having to put in a shed load of evidence that is not required by the run-through trainees. Elizabeth alluded to work that's in progress, I think, by the GMC to try and sort of streamline this process. You know, I don't want to look at 50 pages of a rota, which is not really informative. And so I think the whole thing has become a little bit more nuanced. Just a couple of things. I made some notes, partly based on the chat. I think it's very helpful if you've worked in the UK for a year. I believe there was, and Elizabeth may be able to clarify this, there was a plan, I think, to make that mandatory. But I think if you worked in the UK for a year, it just makes your understanding and insight so much better. I also think it's helpful if your referees have had experience of working in the UK NHS system, because I used to read a reference which would say, well, I've never worked in the UK myself, but I'm sure the applicant will be fine as a consultant. So it just helps if you've got these little extra bits and bobs. So there should be an SSG rep locally. I've just put in the chat, does the SSG committee have a list of its membership? Does anybody have a database of where everybody is? Because one of the problems historically is that the SASG doctors have been very much under the radar and kind of working in isolation and not joined up. And surely with modern IT, we can solve that. So it would be good if you sort of had some sort of forum with a list of everybody. That's it, really.
Thank you for that. I think what we will do is we'll start going through the chat for all the questions. Thank you for everyone who's posted questions, and we'll try to go through as much as possible. Going all the way up during Elizabeth's chat, the questions started coming in. And the first one was regarding CESR. Is it mandatory to have 6 months as a middle grade in level 3 NICU? Or can you have it as a tier 1 or SHO in the NICU setting?
So I think Richard might have really helpfully answered this question. I think this came up more than once actually in the chat I spotted, and I do think Richard really neatly answered it by just reiterating that actually the requirements are all around competency now, as opposed to time and so on. The SSG does outline this as well, so it is important for CESR applications to look at the SSG as well as the curriculum. But yeah, it's about outcomes. The curriculum are all outcomes based now rather than time based. So I think that is actually really helpful from a CESR perspective in terms of success rates and so on. But yeah, the SSG is your Bible in terms of the evidence required.
Can I just add a point on that, Elizabeth? Because wearing my other hat, I've done many AAC rep, I've been the college rep at many consultant appointments panels. And I confess, although I've been doing CESR since it started, I only recently realized, or it was pointed out to me, the legality of adverts. So I cannot put out an advert, and this, I do not think this is widely known. And I don't think it's widely known by consultants and even HR departments. I cannot put an advert out. It must be on the CCT neonatology. I can't do that because, as you well know, the GMC says this person is eligible to be a consultant. Now, I can apply to be a brain surgeon. I might get to the interview, but I'm certainly not going to get the job. You'll be pleased to hear. But they can. So the reason this is important is that if you've got a CCT and it doesn't say neonatology, I'm going to speak about neonatology because it's my thing. You absolutely are eligible to apply for an IQ, a level 3 post. You absolutely are. The problem might be that on the other side of the table, you will have consultants who don't understand the system and they will want someone who is a grid trainee. And I think there's a bit of education that has to happen to my colleagues that, someone who's been through the CESR route, they may have trained and worked at some of the biggest places overseas, Melbourne Children's, Toronto, whatever, but they might not have the CCT in neonatology. So the whole thing absolutely needs to be based on competencies and not misinterpreting some of the wording.
Thank you. Yeah. I think Prakash has something to add as well. Sorry, Elizabeth.
No. I agree with what Richard said. Is we don't have anything for non-CCT based things, and that's one of the things which neonates. There are a lot of people who want to apply for CCT in neonates, but it's a non-CCT specialty. I think GMC is taken over in the last 10 years from PMT, and after them, they have got a huge work of legal hurdles to go through to make it easier. I know things have been more favorable in the last 10 years. I know, James, I've attended one of your things as well, and you made quite a bit of a headway. One of the things is online, because prior to online, it used to be the verifier signing each page, writing the full name, date, and signature. So that, and it used to be a full signature, not a squiggle. And that used to be things. So things have moved forward. I think James is doing quite a good job. Sometimes what happens back door, nobody realizes it. So a lot of things are happening in the background, and but the steps are very slow because of the legal hurdles. And but I think the next 5 years we will see some good changes, hopefully, if everything goes as planned.
We have more questions as well. The next one is, how does the 5-year rule apply for previous less than full-time RCPCH trainees in the UK training scheme? So I assume,
Shall I come in on that one?
Yeah. Thank you.
So yes, that's a really good question. I think this is something that came up a couple of times actually in the chat. So what we say around currency of evidence is that in the main, the evidence that you supply as part of your CESR application should be drawn over the last 5 years. So essentially, the standard is current competency across the full breadth and depth of the curriculum. We say that current competency is in the region of about 5 years. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't supply older evidence. You can. However, it does need to be accompanied with more recent evidence, so evidence from the last 5 years, to demonstrate maintenance of that competency. So essentially, if all of your evidence to a particular curricular outcome is over 5 years old, your advisor will absolutely come back to you and say, that's not going to be sufficient. It's not deemed robust evidence, and you will need supplementary evidence to speak to maintenance of that competency that is drawn from within the last 5 years. So it's not a straightforward, nothing older than 5 years. But if the majority of your evidence is in an area is drawn from more than 5 years, you will need something accompanying. But you do need to look at the totality of your evidence, and we would expect the majority to be drawn within the last 5 years. Now, this is a particular challenge around the CESR process, and we are actually just on the cusp of going out to all of the Royal Colleges and faculties to talk about what's happening in terms of the legislation, what the new standard for assessment for CESR might look like. And we are going to pose some particular challenges to all the Royal Colleges and faculties about certain aspects of the current CESR process, and the currency of evidence requirements are one of those which need particular attention. So what is it that we want to say about, there's still going to be a requirement around current competency, but actually what does that look like? Is that 5 years? Is it longer? We need to look at that, particularly for doctors who may have been working less than full-time hours, but also particularly for doctors who may have had periods of time outside of practice, maybe for maternity, if they've got a disability and they've had longer periods of sickness absence and things like that. So there's one size fits all of the message around 5 years. We absolutely get is not the right approach. So we're really keen to work on that with our Royal College of Faculty partners, and sort of review that in line with reimagining the CESR process, essentially. So yeah, I'm sorry I haven't got something more concrete to say about that, but watch this space.
No, that's perfect and very clear. And I think you've answered another question about less than full-time and time out of working during that 5 years as well. So thank you. The next question is, for CESR, is there a requirement for training outside the UK?
No, there's not, unless you want to make an application in a non-CCT specialty. So if you wanted to make an application in one of the paediatric subspecialties, that would be classed as a non-CCT application. And in that scenario, you would need to hold either a specialist medical qualification in a non-CCT specialty, or have completed 6 months of continuous training outside the UK in a non-CCT specialty. So depending on if you're going to apply in an approved specialty, so something that can lead towards CCT, or if you're applying in what we call a non-CCT specialty, so that'd be any of the paediatric subspecialties or anything else that isn't an approved specialty in the UK, the eligibility requirements are different. So hopefully the slides that I presented are going to be shared, because it does outline it in detail within the slides, but again, there is also guidance on the website. But if you're planning on making a standard CESR application, in an approved CCT specialty, then you don't need to hold qualification or training from outside the UK.
Thank you.
I think Richard wants to come in.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is I think this is a legacy of our college coming up with 18 ologies, which I think no other college has.
You have the most subspecialties, that's true, yes.
Yeah, so if you train as a surgeon, you're a surgeon, and then you go on to be the brain transplant person or whatever. Whereas our college went into this 17 or 18 subspecialty things, and that I think that's led to this very strange anomaly where you have to have training overseas. Now, you may to do the subspecialty. So my understanding from Ben at the college is they're saying, well, you could, because of COVID, you can't travel, you could sort of do an online course or something. And I don't know if we have any examples of where that's actually happened, but rather than spending a year out, if you've got a family, you can't just do that. Mm-hmm. Spending a year out and going to, Hamburg or something. The suggestion was you could perhaps do an online module. I mean, for example, there's European passports for cardiology, and that might just satisfy the powers that be to say, well, look what I've done. Now I can have a CCT in cardiology, neonatology, whatever.
That's a really good question, and I'll need to take that away, because nothing's come across my desk that's actually happened, or that a CESR has been successful on that basis, or that we've the eligibility requirements have been met. But that doesn't mean it hasn't happened. It might just be that I don't know about it. So let me take that away and check on that. I think pediatrics is in a particular set of circumstances because of the number of subspecialties that you have. That's absolutely true. But just to be absolutely clear, the eligibility requirements for a non-CCT specialty versus a CCT specialty are actually defined in the legislation. So it's that PMET order again, which is very specific, very detailed, and unfortunately that inherited legislation that just has that detail, unfortunately.
And sorry to repeat the question, but just clarifying, all evidence has to be within the last 5 years. So for example, if a colleague's done their pediatric specialty training in another country, but the evidence is more than 5 years old, there's no way of using evidence for that.
So, as I said, it doesn't mean that you can't supply evidence that's older than 5 years. It does mean that if the majority of the evidence speaking to a particular competency or a particular curriculum outcome was older than 5 years, it would need to be accompanied by more recent evidence demonstrating that you've maintained that competence. However, if you look at the totality of your evidence and the majority of it is older than 5 years, it is unlikely that you would be successful. So like I say, it's not to say that no evidence can be supplied that's older than 5 years, but it should really be the minority in your application.
Awesome, thank you. I will combine 2 questions. Next one is, I think one may be an obvious answer. Do you need GMC registration to apply for CESR? And the other question was, do you need full MRCPCH clinical exams completed before application?
Okay, so in terms of full registration and license to practice, you don't need those to apply for a CESR, but should you be successful, you would have to hold full registration and the license to practice before we could grant specialist registration. In terms of the Royal College exams, there is no requirement to hold those exams in order to make a CESR application. That's not to say that they wouldn't be relevant and welcome in a CESR application, but they are not mandatory requirements.
Is there any way to get bespoke or one-to-one support with respect to your CESR application?
So we absolutely, at the GMC, invite any applicants who've got particular questions or queries to contact us. And I think I included the number in my last slide, actually, should anybody have any requirements. There isn't, I'm assuming perhaps a little bit around what the question is referring to. There, outside the process that I described, there's not an opportunity to meet with your applications advisor or anything like that, unfortunately, and that's simply a resource requirement essentially. But you do get a dedicated application advisor who is contactable should you have any questions and queries, and will offer full advice and guidance about your application and feedback on your evidence. So that's the GMC perspective. I don't know if the college or anything wants to comment on that one.
Anandi, can I come in for a bit? Elizabeth, just to clarify, CESR is only valid in UK. You can't use the CESR title outside UK. Okay, so that's one thing I need to reiterate. So,
sorry, what respect in terms of whether or not it's recognised outside the UK?
CCT is recognised outside UK, but not CESR. So CESR is only valid in UK, is what my understanding is. Correct me if I'm wrong.
So it varies from country to country, is the truth. So in the UK, CCT, CESR and recognised European qualifications are simply pathways to the same place, the specialist register. So we're really clear that actually all of the pathways are absolutely equal in status. And once you're on the specialist register, there are no differences in the practicing rights and privileges that a doctor has once on the specialist register. However, we have no influence essentially over overseas regulators and employers and the differences that they may perceive between various pathways to the register. And certainly when we were an EU member state, in terms of freedom of movement and direct entry to registers in the European countries, it was only CCT holders who were eligible to benefit from the recognition of professional qualifications. And certainly we are aware, in other countries around the world that there are distinctions made between CCT and CESR. I have personally signed out lots and lots of letters to various overseas employers and regulators stating, essentially the GMC's position or certainly the position in the UK where all the pathways are equal, but unfortunately it is up to the individual employer or regulator overseas whether or not they want to make that distinction or not. So I can't say, it's not a yes or no answer. Essentially, it does come down to the individual country and whether they make a distinction between the pathways that you took in order to join the register.
The next point is not really a question, but a statement in light of the important people in the room right now, where we were wondering if the RCPCH could possibly consider subsidizing e-portfolios for CESR candidates. I know that lies with the college, not GMC, but it's something that we always hear about because colleagues have to pay out of pocket for it. too. Someone asked a question, and I guess, Sabrina, the combined form of your question is you have one supervisor verifying your details for CESR application. Is it that they can go to the various, like if you have a Kaizen e-portfolio for pediatrics, they can go through your e-portfolio and verify that you have these evidence and combine it as being verified by them?
So essentially, you need to have one verifier per institution that you are drawing your evidence from. So if all of the evidence in your e-portfolio is drawn from the same institution, you can have one verifier. And how you share the evidence with the verifier it is between the applicant and the verifier, essentially. However, that's of course not how the evidence will be provided to us, and we will provide a sample of that evidence back to the verifier for them to attest that that was the evidence that they saw when the performer was completed by the applicant.
Thank you. I'm just scrolling through the chat to see if there's anything else. If any comments you'd like to make from the panel, feel free to do it now.
Sorry, Elizabeth. Can I just? It's Aruj. Sorry. Have not GMC may? I think I remember there was a news last year or a year before, which says that the CESR and CCT will be equivalent, and they won't no longer be writing CESR on the certificate. They will be writing CCT, or
No.
am I no?
No, sorry, no. That's never been our position, and I don't foresee a point where we will move to that, simply for the fact that the CCT is a qualification that's awarded at the end of a programme of approved training. CESR is a certificate to essentially say we've assessed the evidence that you provided, and we to make a major decision that you can join the specialist register. So although they are two pathways equal in status to the same place as the specialist register, CESR isn't a qualification, CCT is. So it's not foreseen that we will be issuing all applicants to the specialist register with a CCT.
Thank you. Everyone, please continue to post your questions in the chat. I'll keep scrolling. We may not be able to ask you to speak individually, so sorry about that. Thank you, Richard, for saying that you will seek advice from RCPCH with respect to having a forum or something similar to that. It's really inspiring to see that our WhatsApp group has been formed, so hopefully there could be like some collated information on this and further support there.
I mean, they may take the view that that already exists because there's an SSG committee, and maybe that committee needs to get hold of this problem and you know, get a database and get you all connected.
Yeah, I think that ties in with the next question, as I see from Philippa, and basically they're just asking who can we contact at the college. So it's just, I guess, making that a bit more apparent, or is it there and we just don't know where it is? Is Softlanding able to signpost this through our social media?
Anandi, can I answer all these questions? Yeah. We have looked in a committee in the college to look at this thing. So this is one thing which we wanted to do. And we are trying to see if we can have a group of 4 or 5 of us who are a little bit experienced in answering these questions and at least give them an open view. So that's something it's work in progress, but we'll keep you posted.
Prasanna, it might be good to have a Venn diagram of the SASG committee and the CESR committee.
Yeah, so that's one thing.
Makes sense to me.
So we are trying to publicize who are because we got regional committees as your offices are there for the college. So we are trying to group everybody together and then make sure that they are more accessible. I think we have been there, but we have not been more visible. So it's making it more visible, and one of the first steps here.
Can we do ST training after CESR approval?
Sorry to jump in. I just wondered if briefly we could just maybe hear from Jamil. Thanks so much for the excellent sharing, and Andy and Ashwin. There's been so many questions, actually. I think we've struggled to really give justice to them all. But I'm just aware for people's time that we're coming to the sort of close of our allotted time. But it'd be really nice just to hear from Jamil. And also, I think we were just wondering if, for anyone who didn't get their questions answered, if we might, if people were happy to share emails, I think Elizabeth is available through the GMC website anyway, but if any of the panel are willing to share their contacts, if they could put them in the chat perhaps for people who didn't get their questions answered, and we will do our best to make up an FAQ document and also take forward some of the suggestions and questions that have come up here for the next event. So we'd like to run a small group events for CESR and SAS separately, because there's quite different demographics we think. But if you could fill in the feedback form, then we can know what you want and what would be most useful. So I'll just post that again, and I'll just leave it to the panel just to let us know if they're happy to be contacted, and to Anandi and Ashwin to thank everyone, and Jamil to give just a quick comment, as we didn't get to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Nadia, to really let me in. I'll just quickly go back to a couple of things, possibly three things, which I wanted to make comment on, basically. Going back to Richard's point that we need to be more accessible, absolutely. When actually I took up my role as a regional representative of the SAS committee few years ago, the things which kept coming back to me was people were not really aware of what actually SAS grade is, and how to contact the college, and how to bridge that gap. So I actually made a WhatsApp group, which you probably are aware of, Nadia, as well, I mentioned to you, which is full capacity since I made it actually a couple of years ago. And that WhatsApp group actually is playing a very key role. The way I communicate with pediatric SAS doctors, they are both SAS doctors and trainee doctors in that WhatsApp group, and they keep posting us different things. We have managed to arrange a couple of webinars as well to communicate with them. And I, as part of my role when I used to work as regional representative, I suggested to the college that we should have a college representative in one of those webinars. We have already done it, so that's absolutely great. So that thing is already been initiated. We do have a page on the college website which actually mentions the roles. I'm actually looking at it at the moment. Of the members and regional representatives' names along with their regions as well. It's actually accessible to everyone. The only thing which is not accessible to everyone is the contact details of those representatives. That is apparently only available to the members, college members. So what I was looking at, if we can make that those contact details, at least email address of those regional representatives, public, instead of instead of just making them accessible to the members. That would be great. I'm not sure whether everyone is aware that there is a page, and I've got that on the mobile phone. Basically, it says the names of each area's regional representative. The only thing which we need to add is the email address of those representatives. So that will make actually a lot. When it comes down to communicating with your own area regional representative, basically. And then second thing which Richard mentioned about subspecialties, that is actually a question which keeps coming back to me as well. So often we have 18 or 17 pediatric subspecialties. We have large number of senior SAS doctors who actually work in those subspecialties. We have SAS doctors working in neonates, we have SAS doctors working in community pediatrics, we have SAS doctors working in PEM, pediatric emergency medicine, and endless, to be honest. And they are unable to proceed to CESR just because at a red tape at the moment, which obviously Elizabeth very kindly elaborated, mentioned that that is part of GMC legislation. So that this is one part of my agenda. Actually, I want to make it a little bit further when I take up my role as chair, to really discuss this among our college SAS grade meetings, SAS meetings, to really see if there is any way out. Richard has mentioned actually very beautifully that there could be a way out, offering them some online courses or things which can be done while being in UK. There are hundreds of doctors who have got no subspecialist qualifications, overseas qualification or overseas training experience, but they have spent years working in UK in those subspecialties. They can't even go back to doing general pediatrics now because they are so well established in those subspecialties, but they have been stuck in there and can't go forward with the CESR pathway. So that's one thing which we probably will look forward to really discuss among our meetings. And third thing, the CESR, with regards to the CESR, I mean, Prakash probably mentioned that the CESR, whether it's internationally recognizable or not, it used not to be, but we are getting there. I think I'm aware of certain countries who actually are considering CESR in their own specialist kind of incorporating that in their own specialist pathways, and they are allowing doctors with the CESR, successful CESR, to work as an independent consultant in those countries. It's not equivalent to CCT still. It's not automatically recognized as a specialist in certain other countries, but they are still considering. So it varies individual to individual, from individual to individual countries. So we are getting there. We are getting there. So if anyone has got any other kind of something in their minds with regards to these few key points, then please feel free to ask.
Thank you, Jamil, for addressing a few very important questions. And thank you all the panelists for joining us today. We will try to get back with specific questions and email to the individuals. Our form, the feedback form, it also consists the WhatsApp group link. So once you fill the form, you can check there is a WhatsApp group link for the CESR today. And once again, many thanks, Elizabeth, Aruj, Richard, Prakash, and Jamil for joining us. And it was really a eye-opener session for us.
Can we get a photo of the panel just before everyone goes off to their evenings? It's a well-deserved evening, relaxing evening, hopefully. That would be great. Thank you. Hang on. Okay, smiles, please. Great. Thanks so much to all the panel. Amazing. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And one more important thing to mention, this Softlanding group is a self-made group. So we are all doctors in this. We don't have any technicians. So sorry for all the glitches we had. So Habab is our only technician who is helping with all the software skills. And please forgive us for our small problems. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks so much.
Well done.
Very well.
Yeah,
Thank
great
you.
session. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
Okay, all the best. Take care. Please fill in the feedback. Last chance. There it is.
Thanks, everyone. And your feedback will help us with future events. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much, you panel.
Thank you too, Nadia. Very good.
Do a quick debrief if faculty are here, but otherwise just have your evenings. I have to get my ARCP stuff ready. I'm so sorry we couldn't answer all the questions. It's really tough.
I know it's very difficult to.
Yeah, you guys did a really great job. It was really hard. There's so many questions. We want to help everyone, and then it's really tricky.
But at least we covered the most common theme we covered. Let's see. But there were many.
Thank you guys, very well done.
Yeah.
And hopefully the WhatsApp group can help continue the discussion as well.
Yeah, that's
we
really
might be
positive.
flooded by messages, but at least we know who to signpost to.
Yeah, it's really positive. I think that's come out of it. And Jamil is a good contact, and his group is full, his WhatsApp, but he's a good contact. We can direct people as well. And now that we know Prakash team and that committee, then I think that's really helpful for all those clinical fellow questions, local employed doctor questions. It's really complicated, isn't it?
Yeah.
Makes you think. Even as much I complain about training, at least it's like they said, like a sausage factory. You just go in one end to come out. Yeah. Okay.
So we are all sausages. Excellent.
Halal sausages. Well, some of us are halal sausages. Okay, a lot of people still staying on, so I guess we'll just go and then we can maybe catch up. I don't know, when's a good time to catch up? I feel like we have, maybe we just sleep on it and see like what actions can come out of this and what we're going to do for the
next week. I think next week is our MRCPCH clinical, and I think
and then induction in July, so August or so would be September.
Planning.
I guess the main thing is analyzing feedback to know where to move forward.
Hopefully some more
networking. So I guess not much to say from a debrief, you'd say.
No, we've got 35 responses to the feedback so far, so it's not too bad. It's not too bad. It's pretty good. It'll be great.
I have copied the chat. So
nice. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go.
Bye guys. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thanks so much, Bob.
We can catch up again now on it. You take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
It'll be good to capture the chat. We'll have the chat for this one, I think.
Yeah, I have copied the chat on a Word format, so I'll send it.
Oh, have you? Oh, amazing. I think you get it as a text document as well into the cloud.
Yeah.
Thank God I remember to press record. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.